Auston Matthews and Matthew Knies get the call for Team USA's Olympic orientation camp, but one other Maple Leaf got snubbed. We'll discuss that and more on today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. What's happening, Dave? How are you feeling on a Wednesday?
Feeling pretty good, you know. I always have to remind myself, just like, how far are we from the season coming back or the preseason starting?
Yeah, I mean, we're like a month away from training camp at this point, right? Like I think like 4-ish weeks until we're back in the saddle when it comes to full shows each and every day, Monday through Friday, talking about camp battles. What does that battle for the fourth line look like? That 13th forward spot, 12th forward spot. Is there going to be a trade at some point? That's all coming up very, very soon. But what comes before that, Dave, is the Olympic orientation camps. We saw Canada put out their roster for their orientation camp, which is taking place in a couple of weeks here. I think it's next weekend, actually, if I'm not mistaken. They put their list out a couple of weeks ago. The USA finally announced what their list will look like and the players that have been invited to their orientation camp today, or on Tuesday, rather. So we'll discuss what Maple Leafs made the list, the likelihood of them making the team, but also some prizes and camp snubs as well that were named to the list. So why don't we start locally here in Toronto? Auston Matthews and Matthew Knies were the only Maple Leafs that were nominated or that were invited to go to this event here and vie for an opportunity to play for the Americans at the Olympics in this upcoming Olympic Games. Matthews was on the team for the Four Nations. He was the captain for the Four Nations. Matthew Knies has yet to play for Team USA in an Olympic event or in a major event, I suppose. Well, World Juniors. He was at the World Juniors as well for Team USA, I suppose. But what's the likelihood that there'll be multiple Maple Leafs on Team USA come February?
I like the chances. I mean, you look at the players that were invited. It's a tough team to make. But I feel like, you know, Matthews and Knies are. You bring those names up and people will say, yeah, you know, definitely case for both of them to be on the team, you know, right off the hop. I mean, Matthews is a lock.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. He was already named to like the initial 6 roster or whatever it is, right?
Yeah. I think he'll probably be captain again.
I'll be curious to see. Like that's the only question when it comes to Auston Matthews. He's clearly going to make the team. He's going to be there if he's healthy, I suppose, which was a question mark last year going into the Four Nations. But yeah, I think that's the only question is whether or not they appoint him as captain again. I don't know. Like they probably do. Like, well, why bother ruffling feathers if they felt that he was captain material at the Four Nations a year ago? I doubt they go away from that. They clearly want him to be the face of USA hockey. So it would make sense to give him the captaincy again. And, you know, he's done it before. I know they didn't win the championship at Four Nations, but, you know, he's probably the best American player in the world right now, realistically. Like, you think about McDavid, Draisaitl, Makar, McKinnon. Those guys aren't Americans. Those are all Canadians and Europeans. So, you know, Auston Matthews is probably the best, most logical option when you're looking at someone to lead the Americans.
Yeah, I mean, there are some really good options, and you know, like it's crazy because like the last time the Olympics were played, I expected the U.S. to be back. You know, when the NHLers were at the Olympics, I should emphasize. Like I expected the U.S. to be right back in the medal contention with Canada going for gold. I was kind of left disappointed, right? I remember TJ Oshie with that incredible shootout performance in those Olympics, and then I just obviously now like a lot of people like where USA is going in terms of like the talent that they have all across the board. And so, yeah, it's a pretty solid list when you look at who was invited.
Yeah, well, let's throw the list up here. We've got the list of names that have all been invited to the Ford camp. It was 44 players in total. And like we mentioned, two of which members of your Toronto Maple Leafs in Auston Matthews and Matthew Knies. But look, it's a good collection of players. Like, you've got Jack Eichel, you've got Patrick Kane, who's been a staple, who wasn't at Four Nations, but will he make the Olympic team? I think it's interesting that Patrick Kane might have an opportunity here. Jack Hughes will be there. JT Miller, right? You're looking at some solid players. Jason Robertson, the Kachuk brothers, obviously will be two guys who will be in the mix for sure. Funny enough, actually, look,
Matthew's not a
he's
part
not there.
of
Matthew's not there, but it's because he's not healthy, right?
Yeah. He like we're expecting that he was supposed to have that procedure,
Yeah.
or he was still debating if he was going to have that procedure for his injury from the playoffs. So don't think it'd be wise for him to be skating around with those questions.
Yeah. He'll be there. He'll be on the team. I don't think anyone's worried about Matthew Tkachuk having to be there for the coaches to see him, to give him an opportunity to make the roster. If he's healthy, he'll be there in Milano in February. That's for sure. But I look at it though, like it's going to be tough for Matthew Knies. Like it's just a really good group of players, like Boldy and Gensel and Caulfield. I think Logan Cooley's a hell of a player. Kyle Connor, clearly a top tier goal scorer in the NHL. Like Tage Thompson has proven that he can be a 40 to 50 goal scorer at the NHL level. Alex Tuck does a lot of similar things, that Matthew Knies does. Chris Kreider, who is, basically just an older version of what Matthew Knies would love to become. He's obviously going to be in the fold here for the Americans. So, when I look at Matthew Knies and his likelihood of making the team, I think it's almost a coin flip at this point. He's certainly going to have to get off to a really good start for the Maple Leafs this year in order to put himself in pole position to make the team and in one of these roster spots. But what I think certainly would help him is if him and Auston Matthews get off to an unbelievable start here at the beginning of the season, because in a short tournament like this, you don't have a whole lot of time to create chemistry. So if you have a line mate or a teammate at your NHL club that you play really well with, that is capable of being an Olympian, a la Knies and Matthews, you're more likely to kind of bring those two together as a team. Like we've seen that time and time again in the Olympics where they've done that. Like think back to what was it, that Sharks line from back of the day, Jumbo, Marlowe, and Heatley. They were there together, right? Kunitz came alongside Sidney Crosby. Like this is just something that we see happen from time to time. Not to say that I don't think Matthew Knies is deserving of being on this roster himself, but I just believe if it comes down to Knies or this player, he may get the edge because he can play and has chemistry with Auston Matthews, who is going to be a top line star for this American team.
Well, yeah, that's like I didn't really had considered that point, but like now you bring it up, like it makes a lot of sense because maybe they could do what they did in the Four Nations, just throw Matthews with the Kachuk brothers and you see if that trio can work. But like other than being a linemate of Auston Matthews, like Matthew Knies also ticks a lot of boxes that you brought up some really good players. But like Knies has that dimension of he can play on the penalty kill. He can do some of the other things that maybe some of the goal scoring forwards don't do that often. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure the coaching staff, I think it's still Mike Sullivan that's coaching the
I believe,
U.S. Team. Like he may want to consider that because you want to make sure that you're going to give Auston Matthews best opportunity to be at his best. And if him and Knies are, showing some really good chemistry and they're dominating this, to start this season, it's going to be hard to break those two up.
I agree. So we'll see again the orientation camp next weekend for the Americans and Canadians to see who they'll bring to the Olympics. You don't have to be invited to the camp to get a shot at the Olympics. And there is one Maple Leaf who was not invited to the camp. I consider him a snub who will, I think, have an opportunity to compete for a spot. So we'll tell you who that is and a couple other snubs at the U.S. orientation camp. That's next. You're on the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Have you ever decided that last minute you want to head to the ball game with your friends or family? Maybe it's a game day. You suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even bigger groups to come with you. Gametime makes it possible. Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Price on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch. And they've got incredible last minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worrying out of buying. That's right. Gametime is the official ticketing partner of the Locked On MLB, making it easy to browse the app for exciting upcoming MLB games. You want to go down to the Dome, catch a Blue Jays game, go check out Gametime and use the code LOCKEDONNHL. You'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL. You'll get $20 off your first purchase. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you, as we are each and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday until we get to training camp. Then we're back to 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. All Leafs, all the time, right here on the Locked On Leafs podcast. And so Matthews and Knies will be at the orientation camp next weekend. Goaltender Anthony Stolarz will not be at orientation camp. And it's not that I think Anthony Stolarz is going to make the team or would make the team. That's probably already situated over there. Like they've got Connor Hellebuck, who's their number one goaltender, Jake Ottinger, Jeremy Swayman, probably the three goalies that they'll end up taking to the tournament. But they elected to bring a fourth goaltender to the orientation camp. And this is where I'm perplexed and where the snub status comes in for me. Dave, is Joey Decord, fine goalie, but is Joey Decord a better goaltender than Anthony Stolarz? I don't think so.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And like I was looking at, I want to know. I didn't even look at the goalies because I'm like, the U.S. have so many good goalies. Like you're not really going to question who they bring. I said, it would have been nice if Anthony Stolarz got the nod. And I'm like, they asked who, they included who? Joey Decord, who, look, I understand the guy has got, he's put up some half decent numbers in his, well, actually not okay numbers.
Right.
Like the thing is, like, we're talking about the Olympics. We're talking about best on best. And for Joey Decord's name to be included in this is really puzzling. And like, look, I'm going to take the Homer aspect of it right now because Anthony Stolar's numbers, stellar. And he played, he didn't play as many games as Joey Decord has the last couple of seasons. I understand that. But in the Olympics, it's not a long tournament, right?
No.
And I understand this is the fourth goalie, but it's just like I don't understand where these federations are coming up with these. Like you're throwing out a Joey Decord in there. Even like you look at some of the other ones. We'll get to the other ones, but like like Anthony Stolarz, if he had played more games, probably would have gone in the Vezina conversation last year. Yeah,
he probably should have been. I mean, let's just take a look at their statistics side by side. Like I said, fine goaltender in Joey Decord, but he's certainly not someone who I think should be getting an invite over Anthony Stolarz. Decord, 57 games last year, which is a very high number, ended up with a 906 save percentage and 275 goals against. That's good. That's slightly above league average. The year before was also solid, 50 games, a 246 goals against and a 916 save percentage. also pretty solid, above league average. That's actually quite good for an NHL goaltender. But you want to know what Anthony Stolarz' numbers look like in those 2 years? 34 games. He had a 214 goals against this season with a 926 save percentage. And the year before, 203 with a 925 save percentage. Yeah, so we're looking at the difference between both of their years this past season. And okay, Decord played more games and was declared the starter, I suppose. But the actual statistics, analytics, and even goals saved above expected, you look at those type of numbers, Anthony Stolarz was a far better goaltender than Joey Decord was. Even shutouts. Anthony Stolarz had 4 shutouts in 34 games. Decord only had 2, and he played 57 games. So, yeah, to me, this is a big snub. And again, I it's not that I believe Stolarz would have made the team over, the other 3 goalies who were there last year at the Four Nations, but if we're talking Stolarz or Decord, yeah, absolutely Stolarz should have been invited.
Yeah, like that's my. It's just like if you're going to invite a goalie, like a 4th goalie, then like offer it to somebody who's has a better track record in terms of performance. I'm not talking even about experience or games played because, again, situation different. Stolarz was a backup 2 years ago. This past year, he was playing in my opinion, the toughest division one of the toughest divisions in the NHL. And the guy put up fantastic numbers. The last 2 years he's been playing in the toughest division in the NHL, and he's put up incredible numbers.
And he was great in the playoffs also. So, like, then there's postseason success on top of that, right? Like, it's not just the regular season. He came in and finally got an opportunity to start games in the playoffs. He had a 901 save percentage, but a 219 goals against in 7 games. He was 4-2 was his record before he finally before he left the net here against the Florida Panthers, and the injury kind of popped in, and that was a problem. But yeah, he certainly is a guy who I would have believed in over Decord. But whatever, that's Bill Guerin's decision.
How did Joey Decord do in the playoffs this year? Can you remind me?
I would imagine he didn't play in the playoffs this year.
Oh, okay. So I guess he wasn't good enough to get his team into the playoffs. I know. Maybe that's a little tough, but I'm just saying, like,
I don't know if prime Carey Price could have carried that Seattle Kraken team into the playoffs, to be fair with you. But yeah, I get what you're saying. That's a snub. It's a big snub. I can think of a couple goalies on the American side that I probably would have given a phone call to over Joey Decord. And to be fair, there could have been guys that declined, and Decord could have been like the 6th or 7th guy on the list. And they just said, all right, I want to bring a 4th goalie. And maybe Stolarz got the phone call, and maybe he didn't want to go. Maybe he's got a wedding that weekend or something. I don't know what the situation could be, but like Stolarz, Thatcher Demko is a guy who I figured would get more of a look than Joey Decord. Well, Dustin Wolf out in Calgary. That guy was amazing last year. Dustin Wolf's another player who I personally would have called up, and that's someone who you could think of as your goalie of the future, many years from now. So yeah, that one was a bit perplexing. Stolarz getting left off the orientation camp roster over Joey Decord. But there's a couple more. There's a couple more camp snubs and some surprises as well. Why don't we take a break, come back, and talk a little bit more about that? That's next here on the Locked On Leafs podcast. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you the deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. Is this the year that the Buffalo Bills get it done? You can go make that wager on FanDuel. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you. And Dave, we're taking a look at Team USA's Olympic orientation camp roster, and we know that they have invited two Maple Leafs and Auston Matthews and Matthew Knies. I do believe that Anthony Stolarz should have gotten the invite over Joey Decord. You can consider him a snub if that's the case. Is there any other Maple Leafs that you could consider possibly a snub, like Jake McCabe's an American? He was not invited. Would that be classified as a snub, or you think they made the right call there? He's not considered one of the top, I guess, 16 U.S. American defensemen.
I can get maybe Jake McCabe just because, like they're looking also for like high upside with some of the D-men that they have. Like, it's just a really good list. But like Ryan McDonough, solid defender, but like, is he better defensively than Jake McCabe?
I would say. I mean, is he still better than McCabe defensively? I suppose you could make
That's
that
my
question,
thing. Is just
but
like
McDonough's been around for a while, and he's been a stud defensively.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like 5 years ago, we're not having this conversation because
Yeah.
the guy was like,
No.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
With Canada.
I'm not making the argument that he was a snub. I'm just wondering if there's anyone else that could have been in the conversation, in your opinion.
I don't know really. Like the Leafs have good American players on the team, but like other than like maybe no, like there's not really anybody else that I feel like, like if let's say Joseph Woll had a season like Dustin Wolf, I probably would have said Joseph Woll, but with the way the season ended and his injury stuff, like I feel like there's a conversation.
One goalie,
yeah.
But if you're going to take one of the Leaf goaltenders, it probably would have been Stolarz.
I probably would have done Stolarz as my first pick. Is that kind of crazy though that we're fighting about the 4th, 5th, 6th goalies on the Team USA while Canada has guys that would have been 6, 7, 8, 9th options on Team USA?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I mean, we got Aiden Hill, got Jordan Binnington, and Samuel Montembeault. I took Anthony Stolarz over both Montembeault and Hill all day long. Absolutely. And he wasn't even an invite to US camp. Just goes to show. It's like Dustin Hill or Dustin Wolf over both of those players as well, probably, to be honest with you. Any big surprises to you, though, that was invited to orientation camp? We'll get to some other snubs in a second. Mm-hmm. But when you were looking at the list, did anyone stick out to you as, oh, wow, really?
I felt like Connor Garland was a little surprising just because, he's a decent player for Vancouver, but like Brock Besser didn't get picked. Like he got like out of all the Vancouver players to think of, Connor Garland wouldn't have been the guy I would have picked from amongst the U.S. players. Like it would have probably been Besser over him.
Yeah. I wonder how much of that has to do with like style of play and the role. Like Connor Garland, I think you could throw on the 4th line and be perfectly fine with his two-way tenacity. Whereas Brock Besser, it's like, well, we already kind of have guys who are going to dominate the puck and shoot the puck. Not sure if that's a guy that they need necessarily.
Exactly, right? Like, there's a reason why guys like Shane Pinto are there because that's what he does. Like Frank Nazar, I think like decent player, but
that was the biggest surprise to me. Frank Nazar was the biggest surprise to me. Like he's in Chicago. If people didn't even know who that was, he's a Chicago Blackhawks draft pick from a couple of years ago. And right now he's like the guy who's sitting shotgun next to Connor Bedard. And I guess they're hoping that those two together can have a great season for Chicago. And if that's the case, maybe he's someone in a couple of years who could be, a thought for 2030. But there's no shot that Frank Nazar is making this 2026 roster. No chance. And I was quite surprised to even see his name get put on this list, especially you mentioned a guy like Brock Besser not making it. Alex DeBrincat was not put on this list. So there's a couple of guys where I really kind of sat there and said, oh, really? Frank Nazar over him? Over that guy? Yeah, that one to me was probably the most surprising, I think.
Yeah, like you've already brought up Demko. A lot of people were surprised on that. I saw a lot of upset Montreal Canadiens fans, though.
Well, we'll get to that in a second. We're still talking surprises. We'll get the snubs in a moment. I've purposely left that guy's name off the list so we can talk about it in a moment.
Surprise. Like Jackson Lacombe, I know he's an emerging player, but that was a bit surprising too. People were like, why? Like, people were surprised about Seth Jones. I'm like, why? The guy was a stud.
Just won a Stanley Cup. He was great. Yeah.
He was the reason why, like, if Florida didn't have Seth Jones, if they didn't make that Seth Jones trade, they're not winning the Stanley Cup, in my opinion.
It's possible. It's possible. He was big in that Toronto series. I can tell you that. I can tell you Leaf fans understand why Seth Jones was invited here.
What are your thoughts on
Absolutely.
Alex Vlasic?
See, I like Alex Vlasic, but he's not a guy who's going to make Team USA. For me, I think it's a good player to bring so that he has the experience, a guy that can rub off, playing next to the Quinn Hugheses, the Charlie McAvoys, the McDonald's, the Jacob Slavins of the world. But he's not there yet. He's not one of the top 8 defensemen, and that's what we expect. 25 players will be named to Team USA. Typically, it works out to 14 forwards, 8 defensemen, 3 goalies. Vlasic's not one of the best 8 defensemen in America. He's just not. So he won't be on that list. Neither will Jackson Lacombe, who was another guy that was, I guess, a surprise. But you were about to allude to him, the biggest snub on this list, and the one that got a lot of pub online for it. Would you like to announce the name that will not be at this orientation camp for the Americans?
Yeah, I mean, that's the guy who's a reigning Calder Trophy winner, Lane Hudson.
Yeah. No Lane Hudson at the camp. Got 66 points as a rookie last year. You're not going to give him an opportunity to see what he can do, get him into your system. And this is a guy who has played at the World Championships. He's played, at the under 18s. He's played at the World Juniors. Why wouldn't you want Lane Hudson, who's played in the American program, came up through, the U.S. national team, played in the NCAA. He's been an American through and through with his hockey development. You don't want to put that on display at this tournament. I was really surprised not to see Lane Hudson here. I thought he would have been a near lock, not to make the team, but to at least be at the camp.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling a little bit just because we know that, in the Olympics, you want game breakers, and he's a guy that can provide that. I know we don't want to give too much love for our Montreal Canadiens player, but it was really good. He adds a different dimension to that Canadiens team that they just have not had. So yeah, that was a surprising one for Lane Hudson not to get in there because, I mean, I understand you don't want to have all similar type of defensemen. You do have some offensively dynamic players like Quinn Hughes. You've got Adam Fox. You got
but like Jackson Lacombe, that was a conversation they had in the boardroom. Do we go Lane Hudson or do we go Jackson Lacombe? Right, and they obviously decided let's invite Lacombe. They're both very similar defensemen, and they went with It's to me bizarre. Now, granted, again, I guess we should qualify that maybe Hudson declined. Maybe he's nursing an injury or he's got something else going on and he's unable to attend. I suppose that is possible. But I would love to hear the thought process here if he was left off the camp roster. It's just kind of perplexing to me after the year that he had.
Yeah, no, it's definitely it's perplexing for that reason. I doubt that he would have said no to Team USA if they offered him that opportunity. Also, we brought him up. We didn't really talk about DeBrincat. Guy is still a pretty good goal scorer.
Yeah.
I know Patrick Kane has the experience and he's got, it's Patty Kane. I understand it, but Alex DeBrincat is probably right now in a better position to provide you a bit more, right?
Yeah, I'm just you're looking at it and you just got so many guys. And again, maybe you're having that conversation. Well, do we invite DeBrincat or Cole Caulfield? Because they're both very similar guys, right? Undersized wingers who are going to, be power play merchants and score some goals for you. We need to bring one of them because, which one? And they obviously elected to go with Cole Caulfield. So that's the only possible explanation I have for a guy like DeBrincat.
The Americans, the style of play they want also. They're not going to bring a bunch of smaller players.
No.
One of these guys is likely going to lose their spot to Matthew Tkachuk when he's healthy and if he's healthy, ready to go.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, think about it. Let me just count them. So they're most likely going to take 14 forwards, right? So on the 14 forwards, you're taking Matthews for sure. I think Matthews is a lock. Kyle Connor's a lock. Jack Eichel is an absolute lock. Probably Jason Robertson, Brady Tkachuk, Matthew Tkachuk. At that point, probably JT Miller also, Jake Gensel, Jack Hughes, Matt Boldy. Is Boldy considered a lock, or is he going to have to?
I wonder if his GM is going to make a push, but I don't know.
Yeah. Bill Guerin as the G. Absolutely. Matt Boldy's a lock. So there's 10 guys, and then you've got, Caulfield will have an opportunity to push, Clayton Keller, Patrick Kane, Matthew Knies. Right now, you're looking at Dylan Larkin as a possibility. Alex Tuck, Brock Nelson made Team USA for the Four Nations. Are they going to give him an opportunity to make the Olympic team? They clearly like what he brings. Brian Rust is a Mike Sullivan guy from Pittsburgh. Does Brian Rust make the roster? So, yeah, it's gonna be interesting for them. I think there's like 10 locks, and then there's 4 guys battling for those final few spots there for Team USA. And defensively, I mean, you could probably have all 16 of those guys make a team and be fine. But there's probably also 6 or 7 locks already there. So that's going to be a good squad. The Team USA, it's going to be a really good team. Obviously, Canada, they're going to have a killer squad as well. I'm excited, man. I'm really excited for the playoff or for the Olympics. It's been a while since we've had Olympic hockey, and it's coming back in February. And we got a little taste of it with the Four Nations. It was awesome. And now I want to see the best in the world take on the best in the world again, this time with an Olympic gold on the line. So should be a lot of fun. John Carlson also was a snub, by the way. That was a big one, too.
Oh, yeah. I was like, there's
John Carlson.
Like, would you have John Carlson or Neil Pionk?
John Carlson.
Right? Like, Neil Pionk's a solid player. Not someone I would think about as Olympic worthy talent.
Yeah. So it's also, again, was he not available? I don't know. But it's really weird that John Carlson wasn't on the list as well. So we'll see what happens. These all these players will have a couple of months to prove themselves. And then I think it's December they're naming the team, I think. Or are they pushing it back? Because I remember they did that stupidly. They made the selections for the Four Nations like early December. It was just too early. Like I would have loved to have an extra month to see these guys. But
I think it's like literally the end of the year, like this, like December 30th. Like I think Daily Faceoff have reported was December 31st.
Okay, that's fine. I'll take that. An extra month to kind of figure it out. I'll take that for sure. That gives you the Christmas break to get in a war room and decide, all right, who we naming, right? Gives you a couple more days to figure that out. All right, fun stuff, bud. Love it. We got some news to talk about today. It's been slow. Starting to pick up, though. There's a PTO. Milan Lucic, a little PTO signing with the St. Louis Blues. Are the Maple Leafs in on any PTOs this year? I'm not too sure. It's kind of a crowded bunch, at least up front.
Yeah, here's 15, 16 forwards you're going to have to battle with during camp.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a compelling case to bring in players on a PTO, but at least it means that things are starting to move and shake again, and perhaps the trade winds could pick back up. There's still a Maple Leaf that might have to depart that bottom 6, so maybe we'll see that happen over the course of the next couple of weeks leading up to training camp. That'll do it for us here today on the podcast, though. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti, and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs on Twitter, on Instagram. And we'll be back with another episode for you guys on Friday. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.